All right, so what's up, everybody? Thanks for clicking this video. Thanks for tuning into my live stream. My name is Simon Hill. I'm a Black American from Louisiana, filming this video right now here in Budapest, Hungary. The day is October 16th, 2023. It's about 5 p.m. where I am right now. So I hope you're having a great day wherever you are in the world. And I hope you enjoy this live stream and you find it educational, entertaining, fun, engaging, everything like that. On this channel, we do daily live streams for at least an hour and a half. And I just want to let everybody know, if you're subscribed to my channel and you're tired of getting the notifications, just turn the notifications off, but don't unsubscribe because probably you subscribed for a good reason. You liked the content I made in the past. And I promise you, I will be doing more content related to Black Sit, travel, and that sort of stuff in the future. That will be definitely what I will always do on my channel. But right now, I'm settling in Budapest, getting my life together with my wife here as we, stay here for the next few years as she continues her master's and her studies. But I will be doing a Black Sit for Hungary. And that will be very interesting. So stay tuned for that. I will be doing more just regular content, more blogs talking about anti Blackness in the world, white supremacy, the fight for justice for all people and that sort of stuff. So don't unsubscribe if you're tired of the notifications. I'm just saying this because, there might be people who have unsubscribed for that reason. But generally, I'm thankful for all the subscribers, all the people that are supporting this channel. The channel is going up, it's growing. More and more people are piling in every day. The numbers are going up and everything like that. So I'm very proud of myself and all the work that I put into this channel, but I'm also thankful and very grateful for everybody who tunes into this channel and supports it and that sort of stuff. You get what I'm saying? So, speaking of supporters, I just want to say this. Shout out to Greg Mack, Craig Mack, whoever you are, wherever you are in the world. Shout out to you. You've been a day one supporter on my channel for a long, long time. And I want to, send a special shout out to Craig Mack. I have a love and hate relationship with my comment section. There are some people that are in my comment section that make me laugh every time they post. People that, I can't wait to hear what they think about what I'm talking about or their opinion about stuff. And then a lot of people, you would not imagine, a lot of people get blocked on my channel because I have zero tolerance for personal attacks against me or my wife, my family, or generally, like when I'm giving honest and real reviews of places that are meant for Black travelers or people like that. So, a lot of people on my channel get blocked. I have no time for white supremacists, racists, or trolls on my channel. But shout out to Craig Mack, shout out to Layberry, shout out to the new member of our tribe, C Doggo. Shout out to C Doggo. Shout out to EU. Shout out to Avery Adams. Shout out to a lot of the people that have been riding with me on this journey on YouTube for a long time. Shout out to all of y'all. So, uh, today for this live stream, I literally had no plans on what I was going to cover. I have some things that I really want to talk about, but those live streams will take a lot of time, and I just have to be mentally prepared to do them. So I said in my community tab, anybody who has any idea for any live stream topics, you can leave a comment and we will cover that on that channel. I want to make sure that, we're talking about topics y'all find interesting. So that's what we're doing here. So today's topics, all of the topics for today have all come from Craig Mack. So Craig Mack, if you're going to join later or if you're watching this later, shout out to you for these interesting topics. We're going to cover them today, talk about them and that sort of thing. So let's get to it. So the war in Gaza is still going on, unfortunately. It is a human tragedy and a catastrophe that is happening for the people, the Palestinian people in Gaza, and for generally people around the world that are against colonialism and oppression of people and that sort of stuff. There's no way you can look at this situation of how Israel is treating the Palestinians and not feel something in your heart for the Palestinian people. A lot of people might have watched the live stream that I did talking about my opinion about the Israeli and Gaza relationship or the Palestinian cause and that sort of stuff, and thought I might have been callous or heartless or that I don't care about the Palestinian people. I do care. I want there to be peace in the Middle East, around the world, and any form of white supremacy or oppression against marginalized people or oppressed people is absolutely wrong. So I can say unequivocally, I hope I said that word right. What Israel is doing and has been doing to the Palestinian people for a long time is absolutely, totally wrong, point blank. And there needs to be a solution where the Israelis, the Jewish people who do exist in the world and do deserve safety and happiness and security, they do have a place to go. And I believe that place is somewhere in the U.S. Let them have Massachusetts. Let the Jews have Nevada. Let the Israelis have South Dakota, one of our empty states. We have 50 states, and a lot of them are empty and dying. Let the Jewish people have one of the U.S. states if they want to have a state of their own. I'm being facetious. I'm joking. I'm joking. But no, in all seriousness, Israel should be a country that is a multi ethnic, multi religious, multiracial democracy. The two-state solution is dead. That's never going to happen, very likely. There's never going to be a Palestinian state and an Israeli state living side by side. So, what Israel needs to do is free the people of Gaza and the West Bank, allow them to either, you know, join the fold of the Israeli state, as in make them full fledged members of the state, not have apartheid in Israel, not treat the Palestinians or the Arabs there or the Christians there or any other ethnic group or religious minority in Israel as second class citizens. There shouldn't be apartheid in Israel and that sort of stuff. So, yeah, that's what it should be in Israel, in my opinion. It should be a state that is a democracy that is free from religious influence, in my opinion. And I'd be happy to hear what y'all think about the situation in Gaza and Israel. So C Doggo says, "Oh my God, this will be an interesting topic." Shout out to C Doggo. Avery Adams joined. He said, "Good morning, afternoon to all. Good morning and afternoon to you too." So let's talk more about this Gaza. Oh wait, before I get to this though, I have to say though, while I do feel for the Palestinian people, while I do feel for the Israeli people, and why some people might think that my solution to the Israeli Gaza situation is, BS, or that it's untenable, I don't care. I really don't care. I really don't care because the Arabs have consistently, throughout their history, been very bad to black people, and how Israel treats its black minorities is no better. I've said that multiple times. And I have no friends in the world that are white supremacists or people that are doing blackface on TV or people that use racial slurs against black people in their language or culture. None of that. None of that at all. So, Gaza, salute to y'all. Palestinians, salute to y'all. But good luck. Good luck on fighting the Israelis, because me and my black ass opinion, I'm not going to jump out the window to ruin my life or my career speaking out against Israeli occupation of Gaza or the West Bank, to then, y'all call me all sorts of racial slurs for black people that y'all have in Arabic. I don't care enough about the Israeli Gaza situation to actually do anything about it. That's my honest opinion. Good luck, Israelis. Good luck, Palestinians. Whoever wins, hey, congratulations. Whoever wins in this situation. That's my opinion. That's my opinion. So, yeah, that's all I have to say. Anyway, and by the way, I do denounce terrorist attacks against civilians, like what Hamas did to the Israelis in the kibbutz in the south of Israel. That's absolutely wrong. Anyway, let's get to this story though. Gaza aid stuck as Egypt says Israel not cooperating. This was published on October 16th, 2023, around 4 p.m., only about an hour ago. And this was written by Yusri Mohammed, Nadine Awadallah, and Tala Ramadan for Reuters.com. So, Ismailia, Egypt. Egypt said on Monday that Israel was not cooperating with delivery of aid into Gaza and evacuations of foreign passport holders via the only entry it does not wholly control, leaving hundreds of tons of supplies stuck. Cairo says the Rafah crossing, a potentially vital opening for desperately needed supplies into the Israeli besieged Palestinian enclave, is not officially closed, but is inoperable due to Israeli airstrikes on the Gaza side. It's a shame that the Palestinian people have generally been abandoned by the other Arabs. See, the Arabs are a lot like black people. I know a lot of people like to say, oh, my culture, my race, my nationality is like black people. But Arabs are really like black people because they stay off code. The Arabs stay off code. Whenever the Palestinians have been going through their struggles for a long time, the other Arab nations didn't really give a crap. If I was the leader of an Arab nation like Egypt, Jordan, Sudan, Saudi Arabia, any Palestinian that steps into my country automatically gains citizenship and can work and live and be free. Because what happened to the Palestinian people is absolutely wrong, but it's up to people that share that ethnicity to take care of them. And so the Arabs are like black people. They be off code, totally off code, because a lot of black people don't love other black people. Let's keep it absolutely real. Let's keep it absolutely real. We see in the Americas and in the diaspora what goes on in Africa, and a lot of us really don't care. And a lot of us even work against our brothers and sisters in Africa. And the same thing goes vice versa. A lot of Africans, when they come to our countries in the diaspora, oh, they'd be totally off code against us. They say, oh, you niggas don't work hard. Oh, you niggas are lazy and that sort of stuff. So the Arabs are just like black people, totally off code. How Egypt has been treating the Palestinians and not working to help liberate them is totally, totally wrong. Absolutely wrong. And some people are going to say, oh, in history, the Arabs all ganged up on Israel and tried to fight them in multiple wars and that sort of stuff. Yeah, that might have happened. But since then, where was that continued follow up to take care of the people instead of just attacking Israel? You get what I'm saying? But I'm going to continue reading. As Israel's bombardment and siege of Gaza has intensified, the territory's 2.3 million residents have been left without power, pushing health and water services to the brink of collapse, with fuel for hospital generators running low. There is an urgent need to alleviate the suffering of Palestinian civilians in Gaza, Egypt's foreign minister Sameh Shukri told reporters, adding that talks with Israel had not been fruitful. Yeah, absolutely a shame. It's terrible what's happening. And the darkest part about this whole Hamas Gaza Israeli war that's happening right now is that it's so dark is in the sense that Hamas decided on behalf of 2.3 million people that they are ready to die and literally end everything for the sake of what they believe to be Palestinian freedom. And that's what makes it so dark, because on both sides of this situation, both people would rather die than give up an inch of what they believe to be rightfully theirs. And it's a situation that honestly everybody around the world probably has been depressed thinking about, reading about, watching on TV. And there's no way you can, think about this story without thinking of some negative ending for either side. If one side got their wish, it's very dark. Anyway, until now, the Israeli government has not taken a position on opening the Rafah crossing from the Gaza side to allow the entrance of assistance and exit of citizens of third countries. Yeah, there's about a few hundred Americans there in Gaza as well. There's a lot of Palestinian Americans in the US, and some come from Gaza, some come from the West Bank. And so, yeah, there's a few hundred US citizens there, and Israel is not even letting them leave. That's the crazy thing about Israel. Israel can generally get away with doing anything. They can generally get away with doing anything. They can like literally shoot and kill U.S. citizens, like Shireen Abu Akleh, the reporter for Al Jazeera who was reporting in the West Bank, and the security forces from Israel shot and killed this Palestinian American journalist woman, right? And nothing happened to Israel about that. You know what I mean? Multiple U.S. citizens have died who are Palestinian Americans by the Israeli government, and they don't really care. They don't really care. I think this even goes deeper, farther back. Like, I think if I remember right in history, the Israelis even bombed like a U.S. Base or boat or something like that. I forgot exactly the story, but Israel can get away with killing even U.S. citizens, and the U.S. is still on their side, which is insane, absolutely insane. U.S. officials were still hoping that Rafah would operate for a few hours later on Monday, White House spokesman John Kirby said, noting that earlier hopes had been dashed. Gazans had been under siege since Israel launched its most intense bombardment and blockade ever, following a devastating cross border assault by Islamist Hamas militants on October 7th. Hundreds of thousands of Palestinians have been displaced within Gaza, with some taking cars and suitcases south towards the Rafah crossing, but others heading back north after failing to find refuge. On our way to the crossing, they shelled Rafah Street and we started screaming, said one resident near the crossing. Hadil Abu Dahoud, nowhere is safe in Gaza. I told the story when I was first talking about the Israeli and Palestinian conflict last week about my former ex who was from Gaza. And, even though we ended on bad terms, I really hope her family is okay. Um, that was somebody, that I cared for deeply in the past. And I hope, as this situation unfolds, the millions, no, yeah, I would say there's about 100,000 or plus so black people in Gaza. I hope they're okay, because they were already at bottom of the socioeconomic ladder, and I'm sure they don't have a lot of means and resources to be able to get out of Gaza, or get themselves to safety. So I hope all the black people there are okay, and I sincerely hope that Reham's family in Gaza is okay. If you don't know who I'm talking about, go watch the last live stream I did last week about the Palestinian Israeli conflict. Anyway, let's continue reading. Displacement fears. Like others, Egypt has spoken out against any mass exodus of Gaza residents, reflecting deep Arab fears that the latest war could spark a new wave of permanent displacement for Palestinians from lands where they have sought to build a state. Earlier on Monday, two Egyptian security forces had told Reuters a temporary ceasefire in southern Gaza to last several hours had been agreed to facilitate aid and evacuations at Rafah. However, Egyptian state TV later quoted a unnamed high-level source as saying that no truce had been agreed. Hamas official Isat el-Rashik told Reuters that reports of a deal to open the crossing were untrue, and Israel also denied them. On the ground at Rafah, one source said the Egyptian side of the crossing was ready. Shukri said Egypt aimed to restore regular access through Rafah, including for Palestinians seeking medical treatment or normal travel. Hundreds of tons of aid from NGOs in several countries were waiting on trucks in the nearby Egyptian town of Al Arish for conditions to allow entry to Gaza, according to two sources there and a witness. We are waiting for the green light for the aid to enter, and dozens of volunteers are ready at any time, a Red Crescent official in northern Sinai said. Separately, Reuters video showed UN flagged fuel trucks appearing to leave Gaza for Egypt through the Israeli controlled Kerem Shalom crossing. Movement of goods and people through Rafah has been tightly controlled under a blockade of Gaza imposed by Israel and Egypt since 2007, and only registered travelers can cross. And I believe that's the end of the article. So, definitely, if Israel really wants to go to war with Hamas, they should let the Palestinian people here, like what we're seeing in this video, go, and let all the soldiers stay. But Israel's probably thinking, we think all the Palestinians might be a part of Hamas. Because let's keep it real, Hamas is a paramilitary organization, like a guerrilla warfare geared organization. So their guys aren't wearing uniforms and patches and berets and things that you could signify who is Hamas and who is not. They could just be regular guys in clothes, but they're a part of that militia and they can bang on the Israelis at any time. So I think Israel is thinking we don't want to let anybody go because we don't know who is who, and so they're just going to, go to Egypt and then come back and do terrorist attacks against us again, possibly. I don't know, but I would assume that's what they're thinking. And of course, we have to think more nefariously. Egypt probably is like, we want to end this Gaza occupation, this thorn in our side once and for all. And I seriously think that they're trying to clear out northern Gaza so they can incorporate that into Israel as well. They're not just going to give that territory back to the Palestinians there. They're going to keep on shrinking Gaza smaller and smaller until eventually all the Palestinians have to flee to Egypt or somewhere else. That's my prediction for how this situation is happening. Of course, in the mainstream news, in the mainstream media, they're going to continue to speak about Israel's side of things and always take up Israel's side because we know why. Of course, the mainstream media is about holding up the status quo and the systems of power, and many of the people that fund mainstream media or are in powers there have sympathies and ties to Israel. They don't even have to be Jewish. They just see this as a society that they view as more valuable due to inherent anti-blackness, due to inherent white supremacist thinking that they have. They just see Israel as a white nation, even though they are Jewish, that they are going to fight back against these people that they consider less than, the Arabs, of course. So let's get into the comments. EU said, greetings all. Let's like the video for the algorithm. Thank you, EU. Thank you, EU. Thank you, Avery. Thank you, C Doggo. Thank you to anybody who's watching. So I gave my opinion about the Gaza Israel war plenty of times now. So we're going to move past that. This is a special Craig Mack edition of my daily live streams. Craig Mack is a, constant supporter on my channel, always commenting, always leaving good, comments, always liking the stuff. So if you have an article that you want us to discuss or a topic you want us to talk about in these live streams, send it, put it in the chat, leave a comment, and we will talk about it. So here's another topic that Craig Mack sent over. Did Ukraine's first lady spend $1.1 million on Cartier jewelry during September 2023 New York City trip? The spending spree allegedly occurred during Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky's visit to the United States and Canada in September 2023. This was published on October 6, 2023 by Alex Kasprak for Snopes.com. Now, my opinion about the Ukraine war in Russia, I haven't really, well, I did about a few years ago, like when it happened, right? Um, yeah, my opinion is essentially that NATO, the organization, North Atlantic Treaty Organization, whatever, that has all the Western, more capitalist countries allied with the US to fight back against Russia, essentially, is an antagonistic organization and doesn't really need to exist until now. Until now, because Russia is being actually belligerent, right? To countries, right? They are talking, they invaded Ukraine. Before this war even started, they had invaded Crimea and that sort of stuff. And then, of course, they're thinking about going into Moldova because there's a part of Moldova that wants to be a part of Russia. There are a lot of ethnic Russians there and that sort of stuff. So I think Russia, in a sense, was goaded into this war. This was an antagonistic war that did not need to happen. NATO could have been abolished. We don't need to be spending billions of dollars a year on military spending. The US is the number one military power in the world, and we spend multiple billions of dollars, maybe even $1 trillion annually on military hardware, equipment, training, and we sell weapons all across the world. So, the gun culture that we have in the US, we sort of export to the rest of the world, and we sort of make the world more belligerent because, as we know, the more guns that there are in a society, of course, that society will become more aggressive and there will be more homicides, suicides, mass shootings, and that sort of stuff, like what we see in the US. In a way, the US is bringing that gun culture to the world because we put out so many weapons in the world. We send out so many tanks in the world, so many fighter jets in the world. That's why these countries become so antagonistic to some degree. To some degree. That's my opinion. That's my opinion. And also, in a way, we have geopolitical interest and strategies and things that we do as a nation that antagonize other nations that are not fair. Like, for example, what we're doing in Israel, supporting a country that is being an apartheid regime, oppressing a group of people, that's going to piss people off against America. Wasn't that a big reason why Osama bin Laden flew the planes into the Twin Towers? A part of the reason Osama bin Laden did that was because the U.S. stationed troops in Saudi Arabia to fight against Kuwait and that sort of stuff. No, to fight against Iraq for invading Kuwait and that sort of stuff. But what I'm saying is the way America acts around the world makes people hate us. And the alliances we build are almost not necessary at all. America is no country that's under threats of invasion or for wars or anything like that. We're a country that's isolated by two big oceans, and we have Canada to the north of us and Mexico to the south of us. We have a cousin to the north and a poor, neighbor to the south. Let's keep it real. Let's keep it absolutely real. America could have spent their billions and billions of dollars promoting peace around the world, not selling weapons across the world and that sort of stuff. And so, Russia is a country that has a geography where they feel like they can always be invaded because there's a flat plain that runs into Moscow, and many countries in the past invaded Russia multiple times, like Napoleon invaded Russia and Hitler tried to invade Russia. And so Russia is always trying to defend that border that they have because it's on flat land that leads right up into Moscow and that sort of thing. So when you have an organization like NATO right at their doorstep, that's making it harder for Russia to feel like secure. It's the same as if Russia had an organization of Latin American states all unified to say they're going to fight the US. Let's keep it real. if Russia had some organization where if anybody invades Mexico, Haiti, the Dominican Republic, Jamaica, you're going to have war with Russia and we're going to drop nukes on you. Like we as Americans will be turned up. Like, who are you to come to, the Caribbean or to Latin America and get them on your side? Those are our people. That's how, Russia views Ukraine. But it's not right at all for Russia to be invading Ukraine. That's my opinion about this. But we have to remember that Ukraine has been a country that has been very corrupt, very, very, very corrupt. On my channel a few weeks ago, I had a guy here. His name was Cam, black Nigerian American, who lived in Ukraine. He has a baby mama in Ukraine and everything. And you can go watch this live stream on my channel. Cam was telling me, if you are in Ukraine, it's gangster city. It's like the streets. Ukraine is the trap. Basically, anything you want to get done in Ukraine, you can get done as long as you have money. And it's been a very, very corrupt nation for a long time. I think it was listed as one of the most corrupt nations in the world before the big war started. You get what I'm saying? So when people see these headlines about the first lady of Ukraine going to New York and splurging on money and spending money, that sounds like in line with what we think about Ukraine because of how, Ukraine has been viewed across the world. So this is her. I don't know her name, but yeah, this is Volodymyr Zelensky's wife. I see. So claim Ukrainian First Lady Olena Zelenska spent $1.1 million on Cartier jewelry and got a salesperson fired in the process during a visit to the U.S. with her husband, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, in September 2023. According to Snopes, this is false. And Snopes is a website that fact checks things, and they have a very good reputation. So, I trust Snopes when it comes to this. I don't have a dog in this fight. I still believe that Ukrainian officials like Zelensky can still be corrupt, but a story can be false. But that doesn't mean that the underlying truth that there is corruption in Ukraine from Ukrainian politicians. That still rings true, even if the story itself is false. Anyway, I'm going to continue reading here. So on October 4th, 2023, a claim went viral that said Ukraine's First Lady, Olena Zelenska, had spent $1.1 million in New York City during a September 2023 trip to the U.S. to garner more military aid. Here's the tweet here from Lord Bebo at my Lord Bebo. Breaking, Olena Zelenska spent $1.1 million on Cartier jewelry in New York City and gets sales employee fired. At least the money stays in the U.S. That's funny. That's kind of funny. I'm not going to be playing the video or clicking the tweet because I don't want anything to come up on the stream to make it go down or get flagged by YouTube, but you can find it very easily. The claim in all cases cited is based on a September 30th YouTube video uploaded by user Marshall Leonard, purporting to show a screen recording of another video from Instagram. That Instagram video came from a user named gorgeous.bb.jeanette, whose account is now private and devoid of public content. The individual in the video describes herself as a recent immigrant from Benin who had weeks earlier landed a job as a sales intern at Cartier's Fifth Avenue mansion. As described in myriad copy and pasted versions of this same story, and in that YouTube video, this employee allegedly witnessed a rude Zelenska spending a large sum of money on jewelry and ultimately getting the employee fired from her dream job. Yeah, I just want to say, is Olga Zelenska a famous person? Because I never heard of her from today. And let's keep it real. She looks like any rich white woman on the Manhattan Upper East Side. Yeah, okay. Like, how are you going to know that's Olga Zelenska? If there's some Slavic blonde hair, blue eyed broad walking into Cartier, how do you not just automatically think, okay, this is some New York millionaires, Russian, mail order bride? Let's keep it real. How are you going to identify Olga Zelenska? I mean, she's not famous. We know Zelensky. Zelensky's famous. I didn't even know he was married until today. Did anybody know Zelensky was married? I mean, we could assume so, but it's not like she's famous. How are you just going to know this is Olga Zelenska? I wouldn't be surprised if the stories that this girl or whoever saw supposedly Olga Zelenska, that they're just mistaken, because there's plenty of Russian and Ukrainian high-end hookers running around the world getting flown out, and their backs blown out. You know what I mean? So how are you going to say this is Olga Zelenska? This just might be any broad who's out here, trying to chase a check. Anyway, So let's read the claim. So according to information collected by Bukhari Uedraogo from the Cartier store ex-employee, Olena Zelenska visited the boutique during her and her husband's visit to New York. I tried to take her on a quick tour, but she wasn't interested, the ex-employee further recalls. Zelenska's visit to the luxury boutique ended up in a very unexpected manner as she snapped at the employee who was trying to assist her with a "Who said I need your opinion" rant. Who said I need your opinion? We have to say that with the Slavic slur, with the Slavic slang. Who said I need your opinion? Do you know who I am? I am the wife of the shortest president in the world. Anyway, after that, according to the boutique ex-worker, Zelenska had a talk with the manager. Okay, so they're claiming that Miss Zelenska exhibits Karen behavior. I need to see the manager. This little girl from Benin, this little African is here bothering me. I don't need her opinion. Anyway, after that, according to the boutique ex worker, Zelenska had a talk with the manager. The ex worker has no idea what the discussion was about, but the next day she got fired from the boutique. After receiving a "you're fired" call the next day after Zelenska's visit, the ex employee decided to share her story about the bizarre encounter on the Instagram. Why did they say the Instagram? Who says that? Anyway, she has managed to sneak away a copy of a receipt containing Zelenska's purchases while packing her personal belongings at the boutique. Okay, girl, I know you want to out the person, but don't get fired now and don't make it harder for yourself to get a job because your name is out there and you have to continue to work. Meanwhile, Olena Zelenska, if this really did happen, you shouldn't be putting your face out there tied to hers because number one, she might be able to get you knocked off. The Ukrainians are real gangsters. They got people all over the world. They might be able to get you knocked off. And on top of that, even if that doesn't happen, you want to be able to get a job. You don't want your next job, wherever you work, like at the Burberry store or Gucci, wherever you're trying to work, because I guess you like working in high end boutiques. You don't want them to Google your name and find out that you're sneaking out receipts or that you're being, how can I say, nondescript about the people that come in. You get what I'm saying? Like there's some discrepancy you have when you work with high end people. When I was in Miami, I used to work at this hotel called the Eden Rock, and celebrities came in there all the time. Kardashians came in there, rappers like Diddy and Snoop Dogg. I saw walk through, walk a flock of flame. This was back in like 2016 or whatever. I was working there, so we used to see celebrities all the time. And the management told us, "Yo, you have to chill. Like if you see a celebrity, don't ask them for pictures, autographs. Say yes sir, no sir, like you would any other client, and be cool about it." You know what I mean? So that's what you have to do. And if you see Olena Zelenska, whoever she is, and she's not even really that famous of a person, you have to be cool about it if you're going to work in that sort of situation. And why are y'all pocket watching? Why are y'all pocket watching? Let's keep it real, man. Why are you pocket watching Olena Zelenska? All the people that walk into the Cartier store, if you really want to go viral, talk about what Kim just bought. Talk about, Diddy walking in there splurging. Talk about, I don't know, any of the other famous celebrities who you can go viral about. But not Olena Zelenska. This is what makes me think this is like super fake. Anyway, uh, according to the receipt, Zelenska had purchased a white gold bracelet with diamonds, a white gold necklace with diamonds and emeralds, and white gold earrings with diamonds totaling $1.1 million. The girl says she wouldn't have gone public if Zelenska had just spent all those stolen money and moved forward to the next luxury brand store. However, the decision of the Ukrainian president's wife to ruin the girl's career for no reason has really pissed her off. She didn't ruin her career. You lost your job. Okay, get over it. Get over it. That was a long time ago. Questionable sources. This same copy text went viral on pro Kremlin accounts on Telegram, a social media messaging app popular in Russia and Ukraine, leading some groups like the Center for Countering Disinformation to label the effort pro Russian propaganda. The two earliest outlets Snopes can identify that shared the claim were the Nigerian website The Nation and the Zimbabwean website eHarare on October 2nd, 2023. Both attributed their reporting to an individual named Bukari Ugedragogo, whose connection to either Cartier in New York City, the alleged fixed fired intern, or either of these purported news outlets was never explained. My theory, if Bukari is a man, he's probably a man in Nigeria or Zimbabwe who probably just has a fetish for white women. And so he saw this gorgeous snow princess Olenka Zelenska and just wanted to make up a fantasy story about her to try to get her attention or something like that, or just to go viral or famous. The white worshiping in Africa is very real. A lot of Africans love white people more than they love themselves. And so when they see a woman like Olena Zelenska, they go crazy. So I'm just imagining Bukhari sounds like a male name. So I think maybe this is just some guy who likes to spread disinformation online. And a lot of people are motivated to just try to go viral or spread misinformation online because life is hard, right? So these guys are like, I can make some money on the internet if I just go viral, if I just spread some information out there. I'm going to blow my Instagram up, my Twitter up, and I can make money and that sort of stuff. I don't know. I think that's what Bukhari is doing. This sounds very fishy, where the information came from. Anyway, I'm going to continue reading. Regardless, the claim that Zelensky was able to shop at Cartier on Fifth Avenue during a trip to New York in October 2023 is suspect because it is nearly identical to a claim made about her on a trip to France in December 2022. In that instance, the claim originated from a junk news website with a satire label and was spread heavily by anti-Ukraine accounts worldwide. Just as the current news story about the New York trip has been used, that Paris story was also presented as an alleged juxtaposition to the aid that Ukraine was requesting from the Western nations. As Ukrainska Pravda observed, the most recent iteration lays it on a bit thick. So yeah, it sounds like, Russian propaganda, honestly, like they're just trying to dirty Ukraine's name and play into the stereotype that Ukraine is corrupt and all their officials are corrupt and that sort of stuff, which, is absolutely true. Ukraine did have a lot of corruption going on at the time. But, Russia obviously has an incentive to dirty Ukraine's name, dirty the leaders of Ukraine's name, and anybody tied to the leadership of Ukraine. So that's just my opinion. Impossible timeline. Regardless of the ambiguous sourcing and suspect messaging, there is no plausible scenario that places Zelensky anywhere near Cartier on Fifth Avenue in New York City on September 22nd, 2023, the date shown on the invoice in the viral video. That's because she and her husband left New York City on the evening of September 20th and left the United States entirely on the evening of the 21st of September. So yeah, they were already out of the US. So how could she go shopping on the 22nd? And the receipt says that. That's why, obviously, if this is true, that was a Russian mail order bride who went in there, blonde hair, blue eyes, tall, Slavic, slim, thick, whatever, and did some shopping with her sugar daddy's credit card. And the person just said, that's Olena Zelenska, and just wanted to go viral. Or most likely, it's a, Kunin African in Nigeria or Zimbabwe who wrote this story because he worships white women and loves white women and just wanted to, create a fairy tale, some fan fiction about his fantasy. You get what I'm saying? That's my opinion. So, some defending the claim have argued that the date on the invoice does not necessarily reflect the purchase date. Without interrogating the merits of that claim, there is no conceivable time in which Zelensky could have traveled undetected to the Fifth Avenue Cartier mansion for a shopping spree during this trip to North America. The trip took place between September 18th, when the couple arrived in New York City, and September 22nd, when the couple left Canada. The trip involved not only those two cities, but also a visit to Washington, D.C. to meet with congressional and other leaders, and U.S. President Joe Biden and First Lady Jill Biden, as described by pool reporter Marek Walkowski of Polsky Radio. So, Volodymyr Zelensky arrived in New York on Monday, September 18th. He began to visit the U.S. by visiting the Staten Island University Hospital, where seriously wounded Ukrainian soldiers undergo treatment and rehabilitation. Very interesting. I did not know that the U.S. was taking care of Ukrainian soldiers on Staten Island. That's a very interesting piece of news and information. So the U.S. is not only sending tons of money and weapons to Ukraine, but we're flying out Ukrainians that get seriously injured to be treated in Staten Island. That's very interesting. I that's something we should look deeper into. So on Tuesday, September 19th, he gave a speech at the UN General Assembly, and on Wednesday addressed September 20th, the UN Security Council. In New York, Zelensky held a series of meetings with leaders and also met with the President of the European Council, President of the European Commission, and the UN Secretary General. Zelensky held a separate meeting with the U.S. Special Representative for Ukraine's economic recovery by Penny Pritzker. In New York, Volodymyr Zelensky also met with business leaders, Wall Street CEOs, and diplomats, including former Secretary of State Henry Kissinger. I can't believe Henry Kissinger is still alive. Henry Kissinger is a war criminal, number one, who helped the bombing campaigns in Cambodia, killing like innocent people and that sort of stuff. Henry Kissinger is like the devil incarnate, but this proves that the good die young. Good people, leave the earth very quickly. And Henry Kissinger is still walking around. How can you meet with Henry Kissinger? How can you even talk to Henry Kissinger? Henry Kissinger can barely hold his shoulders up. How are you actually able to have a conversation with Henry Kissinger? Who knows what the hell he's saying? I'd rather have I'd rather have phone sex with Noam Chomsky than ever try to have a serious conversation with Henry Kissinger. Not because Henry Kissinger is a war criminal, just because I literally would not have to not understand what he's saying. So, anyway, before visiting the White House on September 21st, Zelensky met with leaders of Congress and visited the Pentagon, where he met with Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin. For many of these events, including the UN General Assembly speech and the meetings at the White House, Zelensky was photographed accompanying her husband. At times when the two were separated, Zelensky had her own well documented public events. And here she is right there at the UN. All right. So I'll continue here. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky's wife, Olena Zelenska, attends the speech of her husband during the United Nations General Assembly on September 19th, 2023, in New York City, celebrating International Equal Pay Day 2023, where she spoke about the situation with pay for Ukrainian women, according to the official website of the President of Ukraine. On September 19th, Zelensky addressed the UN General Assembly. Zelensky in attendance. The president also met with several other world leaders that day. During those meetings, Zelensky met with the director of the World Health Organization and spoke at the UN event, Fighting for the Future Ukrainian Children in War, in part to draw attention to the horrific crimes against children committed daily by the Russian occupiers in Ukraine and to the problem of returning deported children, according to the president's website. I don't know if people have heard about this, but basically, Russia is like kidnapping Ukrainian children and taking them to Russian families that can't have children or people that want to adopt children and raising those Ukrainian kids as Russian. Basically, committing a type of ethnic genocide. And that's absolutely wrong. Russia shouldn't be doing that. So, on September 20th, Zelensky addressed the UN Security Council. At the same time, Zelensky attended a meeting of the Clinton Global Initiative, which is part of the Clinton Foundation, to receive the Clinton Global Citizen Award for her extraordinary leadership in unimaginably difficult circumstances and for being a forceful advocate for peace and a relentless champion of her determined people, according to the Clinton Foundation. On September 21st, the couple traveled early in the morning to Washington, D.C. There, Zelensky met with congressional and Pentagon leaders, while Zelensky gave remarks at Georgetown University. The couple reunited for their appearance with the Bidens at the White House. That night, they left Washington for Toronto, Canada, arriving at the coincidentally named Ottawa McDonald Cartier International Airport that evening. That's funny. That's funny. On September 22nd, the day of the purported Cartier spending spree in New York, Zelensky addressed the Canadian Parliament alongside Zelensky and participated in a rally with Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. Later that night, the couple returned to Ukraine following that event. So yeah, she couldn't have spent $1.1 million in New York on September 22nd because on September 22nd she was here with her husband looking very sad, very depressed, like her Botox is falling out of her cheeks and her facelift is unfacelifting, and she is in Canada. Maybe they meant to say she spent 1.1 million Canadian loonies at the Cartier in Toronto, but if that's the case, put that story out rather than a fake story about her being in New York. So this is the picture. So for these reasons, the Cartier trip could not have occurred on September 22nd, as indicated in the viral video, and almost entirely based on how packed both of their schedules were, could not have occurred on any of the days prior to that, at least not without media attention. Because of these facts, combined with the questionable sourcing of the story and is similarly to other recent false claims about Zelensky, Snopes rates the claim as false. So that's the end of that story. Yeah, Olena Zelenska, I'm sure she's rich. I'm sure she has more money than actually she should be getting paid or receiving as the first lady of Ukraine. But yeah, the story about her being, a shopaholic in New York, absolutely false. I don't know why, Craig Mack, you wanted me to read this story. I don't really talk about Ukraine that much. I don't even talk about, the war and stuff like that much, but still an interesting story. Anyway, let's go here. So this was another story that Craig Mack brought to my attention. So apparently in Canada, they honored a neo-Nazi. I don't know anything about this. I did not read any of these articles beforehand before coming on live to chop it up with y'all. But let's get into this. Canada is a country that I covered on my channel a few weeks ago, and that was actually a very dope, very interesting live stream. You should go check that out. It's about this place in near Vancouver, that basically somebody put up a whites only kids daycare sign, right? And people were mad in the community, and people were shocked that there was racism and anti-black racism in Canada and that sort of stuff. But then I did a deep dive live stream talking about the history of segregation and violence against black people in Canada, and it's actually very, very deep and very, very dope. So go check out that live stream if you haven't. I didn't know any of that information until I read it. So let's learn some more information about what's happening in Canada right here. So deepest apologies. Canada official backtracks after Ukraine Nazi honored. Canadian Parliament Speaker says deeply sorry for honoring Yaroslav Hunka, 98, during Zelensky visit to Ottawa. I won't be playing the video, of course, because YouTube likes to copyright strike, but this was published on September 25th, 2023. The Speaker of Canada's House of Commons has apologized for praising an individual who served in a Nazi unit during World War II in a session attended by Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and visiting Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. Speaker Anthony Rota recognized Yaroslav Hunka, 98, as a Ukrainian hero, a Canadian hero, before the Canadian Parliament on Friday, saying, "We thank him for all his service." So I don't know his story, but generally, if I remember history right, Ukraine was occupied by the Soviet Union and they wanted to fight for their independence and that sort of stuff. So a lot of the Ukrainians allied with the Nazis during World War II because the Ukrainians were fighting the Russians, the Soviets, and the Nazis, of course, were fighting the Soviets. Hitler decided to invade the Soviet Union for whatever reason. So a lot of Ukrainians might have pro-Nazi views because they view the Nazis as liberators of their country. Plus, a lot of them fit the mold, even though they are Slavs, and the Nazi ideology said that Slavs were less than the pure Aryan race, even though they were white as well. Even though many Ukrainians and Russians have blonde hair and blue eyes, the Nazis viewed the Slavs as less than. A lot of them, still were like, let's side with the Nazis because, hey, they are freeing us from Russia and that sort of stuff. Even though the Nazis literally hated them and wanted to exterminate them too. It's crazy. White supremacy is a dumb idea, dumb ideology. But yeah, I think that's a big part of why we have the Azov battalion in Ukraine that are literal neo-Nazis and that sort of stuff. Not only because they're poor, ignorant white people in Ukraine, and that's what poor, ignorant white people generally do. They cling on to bad ideas and end up falling into the traps of people who are a bit more intelligent but have worse views than regular people. So they end up falling into the traps of white supremacists and demagogues and that sort of stuff. So a lot of poor, ignorant white people in Ukraine end up that way. But even more on top of that, they live in a homogenous society where they don't have anything. They don't have two pennies to rub together. So, of course, they're going to view outsiders with disdain and distrust because that's what happens in a lot of poor Slavic nations, like what I've experienced and what I've shown on my channel. When you go to places like Georgia, Georgia had a very bad history with the Russians and the Soviets and that sort of stuff. When I was in Batumi, Georgia, and you can find this video on my channel as well, and on my second channel I share with my wife, Backpack Bandits, there were swastikas around the city. There was Nazi symbolism around the city of Batumi. A lot of people there have sympathies with the Nazis and with the fascists because they fought the Russians. And I think that's a big part of it. But there's still no reason to be a Nazi today or a neo-fascist today. World War II is over. The Cold War is over. We live in a globalist society. You shouldn't hate black people or white people or any other group of people or nationality or ethnicity. It's just stupid. Anyway, let's read about Hunka's story. Hunka served in World War II as a member of the 14th Waffen Grenadier Division of the SS, according to the Friends of Simon Wiesenthal Center, a Jewish human rights group that demanded an apology. The center said Hunka's ties to the Nazi war machine are well documented. Both Zelensky and Trudeau joined in acknowledging Hunka during the parliament session with applause. Rhoda took responsibility for what he characterized as an oversight, calling the initiative entirely my own. I don't get how this is an oversight when Zelensky, should be more sensitive and aware because he's a Jewish person himself. So, this guy fought for the Nazis in World War II. How could this be an oversight? If you're going to say he's a war hero, you're going to look up what army did he fight in at least? What regiment was he in at least? I think with a quick search of Hunka's history, you would find out that this guy fought for the Nazis. Okay, so I don't get why that's an oversight. That's stupid. That's not an oversight. They should have spoke about that in the ceremony. Yes, he fought for the Germans, but he was fighting for the liberation of Ukraine or something like that. And then later on, he disavowed his Nazi beliefs if he had any and that sort of thing. I mean, I don't know, man. I don't know. I'm going to continue here. So I have subsequently become aware of more information which causes me to regret my decision, he said in a statement on Sunday, offering his deepest apologies to Jewish communities in Canada and around the world. He reiterated his apology on Monday in Parliament, telling Canadian lawmakers that he was deeply sorry for his gesture and remarks. I would also like to add that this initiative was entirely my own, Rhoda said. No one, including you, my fellow parliamentarians, or the Ukraine delegation, was privy to my remarks to their delivery. Here's Volodymyr Zelensky in the Canadian Parliament. There's Justin Trudeau right there. Let's continue reading. Standing ovations. The recognition came following the visit to Parliament by Zelensky, who thanked Canada for its assistance in Ukraine's war against Russia. Following Zelensky's remarks, Rhoda acknowledged Hunka, who was seated in the gallery, praising him for fighting for Ukrainian independence against the Russians. Hunka received two standing ovations from those gathered as Canadian lawmakers cheered. Zelensky raised his fist in acknowledgement, and Hunka saluted. At a time of rising anti Semitism and Holocaust distortion, it's incredibly disturbing to see Canada's parliament rise to applaud an individual who was a member of a unit in the Waffen SS, a Nazi military branch responsible for the murder of Jews and others, the Friends of Simon Wiesenthal Center said in a statement. It's very confusing. I'm pretty sure Zelensky knew that this guy fought with the Nazis. And still, as a Jewish person, you're going to give this person a wave and a fist and stuff like that. Like, come on, man. What are you doing, Zelensky? Like, have some nuts. Like, but the thing is, Zelensky has to make a deal with the devil as a Ukrainian. As a Jewish person in a country that has a lot of, basically poor, ignorant white people who are very you know, easily misled to believe racist propaganda that comes from the far right and stuff like that. Zelensky has to make a deal to work with the Azov battalion, which is blatantly neo Nazi and white supremacist. Zelensky has to make a deal to honor the people that fought for Ukrainian independence against the Soviet Union, even though a lot of them were Nazi collaborators. Zelensky has to always make this deal and walk this fine line, which kind of makes me feel bad for him. It's like how Obama had to walk that fine line of being that black president, but also the president of a country that's openly white supremacist and damaging to the rest of the world. It's very interesting, Zelensky's thing. But anyway, I'll get into the comments. Craig Mack finally showed up. Shout out to Craig Mack. We're doing this for you, buddy. Thank you for always supporting, leaving comments, likes, and that sort of stuff. We read, all two of the stories that you gave me before about the Gaza situation. We read about that, watched that in the playback. We read about Olena Zelenska spending God knows how much money in New York. And now we're on the story of the neo Nazi who was celebrated in the Canadian Parliament. Thank you for the interesting stories. Continue to be plugged in, engaged, Craig Mack. We appreciate your support over here. So let's continue building. An explanation must be provided as to how this individual entered the hallowed halls of Canadian Parliament and received recognition from the Speaker of the House and a standing ovation. Russia's RIA state news agency cited Russia's ambassador to Canada, Oleg Stepanov, as saying the embassy will send a letter to Trudeau and a note to the Canadian Foreign Ministry on Monday. We will, of course, demand clarification from the Canadian government, Stepanov was quoted as saying. So, yeah, optics are not good. Dominique Aurel, chair of Ukrainian studies at the University of Ottawa, said the incident is highly problematic. We have the issue of symbolism here, the optics of serving in a military unit whose logo is that of arguably the greatest criminal organization in the 20th century. So obviously the optics are not good. You think? Yeah, definitely not good. So, Craig Mack left a comment but then retracted it. I don't know what he said. Sea Doggo, Zelensky destroyed many Hungarian statues in Ukraine and led neo-Nazis to attack the Hungarian minority for some reason. I'm very interested to find out how many Hungarians are in Ukraine. Ukraine is a very wild place from what I understand there. It just basically sounds like like a mafia state. Basically, from what I've gathered from people that have gone there, talk to people from there and that sort of stuff. Ukraine just seems like a wild place, and they have a lot of Nazis running around, a lot of racists on that in that place, a lot of people who are just xenophobic and nationalistic. They should be a bit nationalistic, I guess, because they're fighting a war for their independence and freedom from Russia, right? But on the other hand, there's just a lot of ignorance there. Sea Doggo says there's around 300,000 Ukrainians there. I hope all of them are safe, but I hope the Ukrainians decide to come back to Ukraine because I hope the Hungarians, sorry, I hope the 300,000 Hungarians that are in Ukraine decide to come back to Hungary because Hungary is generally chill, peaceful. Ain't no war popping off here. I don't think Russia is going to come back and take over Hungary, right? So I think, if you're in Ukraine right now, you should be trying to get out. I don't get any reason why anybody would be staying in Ukraine right now, especially if you're dealing with that sort of racism from the Ukrainian people. On my channel, one of the very first videos I did that blew up, and you can still find this on my channel, is about the Peace Corps in the United States telling black and brown people that if they were going to volunteer in Ukraine, they should be prepared to get called racial slurs like nigger or other racial slurs for black people or dark-skinned people there. So yeah, Ukraine is like a wild place from what I gather. And yeah, uh, I would probably visit after Russia takes it over or whether Ukraine gets their independence. I don't know. I really don't care what happens with the war. I don't care about what happens in Israel or Gaza, really. I'm just pro, fighting for people that are dispossessed and against people that are oppressors and bullies and that sort of stuff. Anyway, let's continue building here and reading this story. Trudeau, in particular, has come under pressure from opposition conservative lawmakers who have questioned how the Canadian Prime Minister's office could have been unaware of Hunka's background. Your statement doesn't answer the questions around how the individual was vetted, Andrew Scheer, the former Conservative Party leader, told Rhoda in the House of Commons on Monday. Russia launched a full-scale invasion of Ukraine in February 2022, saying the goal of the special military operation was to denazify and demilitarize its neighbor. Zelensky is Jewish and lost relatives in the Holocaust. I hate when people bring that up because Nazis can obviously be around Jewish people and Jewish people will be okay with it. Let's keep it real. Zelensky allows Azov to run around with Nazi insignia all over their uniforms. Jared Kushner in the Trump administration didn't resign even when Trump was talking about there's good people on both sides. There's protesters here against police violence, and there's literal Nazis, white supremacists, and Ku Klux Klan members protesting against those people and fighting in the streets of Charlottesville in America. Jared Kushner, Trump's very Jewish son-in-law, didn't step down. You get what I'm saying? So yeah, Jewish people can sometimes make a deal with the devil and work with white supremacists and neo-Nazis like Zelensky is doing. Let's keep it real. Sea Doggo says, I met many people who left Ukraine. Sad to see they left their houses, families, communities behind, even the men, because they can't leave the country. They have to fight. Yeah, it's absolutely sad what's happening in Ukraine. And here in Hungary, there are a lot of Ukrainians walking around and Russians, I guess, too, as well. And it's very interesting how Hungary is playing like both sides of the fence in the Ukraine conflict, because Hungary as a country wants to keep close ties with Russia, I guess because they want to have Russian gas to prepare us for this very cold winter. This is going to be my first time experiencing a Hungarian winter. And boy, the weather is like, what, 12 degrees right now, and it gets extra cold at night. So, yeah, they definitely need gas and that sort of stuff. So I can understand them on that part. But also at the same time, Orban was like, we're going to allow all the Ukrainians to come in and that sort of stuff. And we want all the Ukrainians to come to Hungary, and we're opening our doors and for them. And so, yeah, countries in Europe want to sanction Russia, but Hungary is like holding them back from doing that. It's very interesting how Hungary plays like both sides of the fence in this conflict. I don't know, maybe Orban can help mediate and find a resolution and a peace deal between Russia and Ukraine. Maybe that could happen. I hope so, because there should be peace there. But either way, I really don't have a dog in the fight. So, Sea Doggo says, how long will you stay here? The winter is close to negative 10 degrees Celsius. Wow. I don't think I've ever experienced that. Maybe I lived in Serbia for about 2 years. So yeah, in Serbia, maybe it snowed a lot in Belgrade. So maybe that was negative degrees. But yeah, I'll be here for a few years. I'll be hanging around Hungary for a few years. My wife is studying to get her master's. I plan on studying too. I plan to go back to university, hopefully. Been applying for some English teaching jobs out here as well. I teach English online and do YouTube in my spare time. I also do some writing as well as a music critic for another YouTube channel, Culturalist Theory. Go subscribe to them and check out my 2 videos for Khalees and Plies. I have some more videos dropping soon. So yeah, I plan on being here in Hungary for some time. Kind of an expensive place, definitely the most expensive place I've lived in quite a long time. But yeah, we're making it. We're going to be good, and I enjoy Hungary so far. So let's continue building here. So, Russia launched a full scale invasion of Ukraine in February 2022, saying the goal of the special military operation was to denazify and demilitarize its neighbor. Zelensky is Jewish and lost relatives in the Holocaust. Kiev and its Western allies say Russia's attack, which has killed tens of thousands and displaced millions, has been an unprovoked land grab. The United States says Moscow's false justification for the war has been nothing but the Kremlin's attempt to manipulate international public opinion. All right. So going back to Sea Doggo, or Craig Mack says in the comments, I'm in Serbia now. It's 14 degrees Celsius. Next week we'll be in the 20s. Yeah, this time of year, the weather is like bipolar in like Central Europe or the Balkans, because like um, today it was like what, around 20 degrees, during the day, sun shining and everything. The day before on Sunday, it was like what, 15 degrees during the day, cloudy, gray skies. The weather is crazy right now here in Serbia. I mean, in Hungary and like in Europe, very bipolar weather. But I definitely like this more than the summer. Summer is not for me. Summer is not for me. Anyway, Benai Brith, Canada's CEO Michael Moyston, said it was outraged that Parliament honored a former member of a Nazi unit. Moyston said Ukrainian ultranationalist ideologues who volunteered for the Galicia division dreamed of an ethnically homogenous Ukrainian state, and endorsed the idea of ethnic cleansing. We understand an apology is forthcoming. We expect a meaningful apology. Parliament owes an apology to all Canadians for this outrage, and a detailed explanation as to how this could possibly have taken place at the center of Canadian democracy, Moyston said. And that's the end of the article. So once again, I think Zelensky is walking a very fine line. I hope Ukraine is able to fight back against Russia, because Russia is absolutely wrong for trying to take their territory and kill innocent civilians like they did at the start of the war, and like possibly they still do now in places like Bakhmut and stuff like that. And so, yeah, but Zelensky honoring a neo-Nazi just shows you that white supremacy is real. Even though Zelensky is Jewish, he plays the game of placating white supremacists, apologizing for white supremacists, even saluting white supremacists, and the Canadian government is right along with it. There is no way that they did not know Yaroslav Hunka fought for the Nazis in World War II. They still knew that, and yet they still gave him a standing ovation and applause for being a great soldier and a patriot. A patriot for what? The losing side of a war? I don't know. To the white supremacists, nobody loses a war if you're fighting for a stupid, dead ideology, right? Anyway, yeah, so that's that article. And the last article we will read for today is another article that was recommended by Craig Mack. It's about the U.S. bringing back the draft. For people that don't know, the draft is when the government says, young men, you have to go fight in the war. Uh, in the US, we have the selective service, even though the draft ended after the Vietnam War in like the 70s or whatever, right? We still have to sign up for selective service, which, if they do bring up the draft, men of a certain age will be selected to go fight in our useless imperialistic wars abroad. Um, I didn't hear about this, so I decided to fact check it. And the best article I found was from AP News. The U.S. isn't planning to order young men to enlist in the military, despite claims made online. So, this is a picture of U.S. Marine Corps recruits checking for tripwire around the edge of a culvert pipe during basic warrior training at the Marine Corps Recruits Depot. This was published by Philip Marcello, published on what is this? October 10th. This is published on October 10th, 2023. So here's the claim: the U.S. military is planning to reinstitute the draft. AP assessment false. Defense officials confirm the armed forces have made no such recommendation to Congress or the president, which are the entities empowered to authorize a draft. So let's read a bit of this article. The facts: with American allies in Europe and the Middle East embroiled in conflicts with no end in sight, social media posts are claiming the U.S. military is considering mandating regular citizens to enlist in the armed forces. A number of those are sharing a headline from a September 25th article from the Mises Institute, a libertarian group in Alabama, that reads: the U.S. military is laying the groundwork to reinstitute the draft. Other posts include passages from an essay in Parameters, a quarterly journal published by the U.S. Army War College in Carlisle Barracks, Pennsylvania. The essay, entitled A Call to Action: Lessons from Ukraine for the Future Force, highlights military lessons from the ongoing Russian invasion of Ukraine. It's also cited in the Mises Institute article. Biden set to bring back the draft for war with Russia or China, wrote one Facebook user who shared a video that included screenshots of the Parameters essay. Let's get into the comments real quick. So, C Doggo, yesterday you said whites on white discrimination is not racism. How you see the Holocaust? Was it racist, or was it about ethnic cleansing in Croatia against the Serbs? Why won't you call it racism? Number one, it is not. Okay. All right. Let me first talk about the draft before I address this. All right. So yeah, if the U.S. brought back the draft, that would be horrible. Because number one, Americans are fat, and a lot of Americans could not complete basic training. So that would be an embarrassment and a waste of money, bringing so many fat, lazy Americans who are used to playing Minecraft and Call of Duty all day, and throwing them in basic training to go fight in useless imperialistic wars. Secondly, I don't think the U.S. really wants to start conscription, which is another word for draft, because usually people that are conscripted get very angry with the government, and you don't. The last thing you want is a bunch of young, angry men who had military training coming back to the country that sent them to go fight and die somewhere else in the world. Really, really dumb. Really, really dumb. And yeah, on top of that, it's just useless. We already have a bloated military. We have a very large and very expensive military. We don't need to make it more expensive by putting more and more young men in it. Let's talk about C Doggo's comment about white on white discrimination. Let's get this absolutely clear. Jewish people are not a race. Croatians are not a race. Serbs are not a race. Hungarians are not a race. If Hungarians, Jews, Serbs, any group of white people are a race, tell me the specific way you can find out somebody is Hungarian, German, Jewish, Serbian, without them opening their mouth and just by looking at them. If I had a picture right here of two white women in my hands, and I said, tell me which one is Romanian and which one is Lithuanian, you would not be able to just tell the difference. The same way, if I put up a picture of two black guys, one is Botswanan, one is Nigerian, can you tell me which one is the difference? Tell me which one is. You cannot. Race is about phenotypical descriptions that distinguish people from other groups of people. Race is a social construct because essentially it is not real. Though I might look different than the average white Hungarian or any white person in general, there is no true difference in our DNA. It only goes skin deep. Race is a social construct, though, that was created through the system of colonialization and white supremacy that spread across the world, dictating different groups of people, and henceforth, people ascribed different attributes to people that they perceived to look different phenotypically. After that, we sort of continue to play into these fantasies. Race is a fantasy, just the same way money is a fantasy, or any sort of ideology is a fantasy. It's something that's a fantasy, but it's real because we believe in it. God is real in a way because we believe in God and people act upon God. While a physical God might not be real, just the idea enough of God existing proves it to be real. Race is the same. Race is the same. So when the Jews were killed by the Nazis or by the Germans, and C Doggo is typing comments, but he's essentially not even listening. C Doggo is typing comments, but he's essentially not even listening to my explanation to him because he has not thought clearly enough about race. Clearly, C Doggo has clearly not thought a lot about race, and he just views any form of discrimination against other groups of people as racism, which it is not. The Jews who were in Germany and the Jewish people anywhere in the world who are discriminated against by other white people are discriminating against them based on their ethnic background or what they deem to be their religious background or them being outsiders. Period. Period. When the Serbs slaughtered Croatians or whatever, or when the Croatians slaughtered Bosnians or whatever, any of that Balkan bullshit that I don't want to get into, that is not an example of racism because the people of the Balkans are all a part of the same race. Let that be white, whatever you want to define it as. There is no distinguishable physical phenotypical difference between people that much in Europe. You cannot describe the people differently that much. You might say, okay, there are more dark-haired people in Bulgaria than there are in Sweden or whatever, that sort of stuff. But these sorts of physical traits are generally interchangeable, and you can find them in both societies or in places. There is no distinguishing between the races there. You can call discrimination against other types of people just basically ethnic discrimination, nationalistic discrimination, religious discrimination, but it is not racism. It is not racism. I hope that was actually clear, C Doggo. But of course, C Doggo is the right wing guy that I allow to be in this space. I allow you to be in the space, C Doggo, because I think possibly you are an intelligent person. But if you are just unwilling to actually listen, if you're unwilling to actually listen and learn and think differently, then there's no point in even continuing to answer your questions, honestly. So the Nazis did it, counted the size of the nose of the Jews, described Hungarians as Mongolian looking eyes, and made ideology on why they are different from the German race. They can try to do all of that, but how does race actually work? While yes, there is scientific racism, such as phrenology, when people measured the size of skulls, or when people were measuring people's noses, or how their posture was to determine their physical characteristics, as if any of those things actually matter. They were not able to create a race of people that were physically distinguishable because there were Jewish people walking all around Nazi Germany. There were Jewish people walking all around Poland and that sort of stuff. And the only way the Nazis could distinguish them and find them to put them into camps was to put stars on them. They had to literally put something on their body to distinguish them. What did I put on my body to distinguish me from being black? And what did you put on your body to distinguish you from being white? Absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing. There is nothing. There is no way in the world I can go about my life and people not know or assume the race I am based on my phenotypical appearance. The same applies for you, C Doggo. I assume because you're white, because not because you're from Hungary, but because you talk like a white man. You're talking very white. You're talking very white because white people want to call everything racism, and everything is not racism. Y'all, white people love to say black people talk about racism a lot, but y'all call everything racism. A guy messes up your order at McDonald's and then he's rude to you, and then you say he's racist. That's the sort of stuff y'all be doing. Race is a social construct based on phenotypical differences that people easily identify and people ascribe to a specific group of people. It's very, very simple. It's very simple, but you guys make it more complicated because you call everything racism. And that's why I don't call anything racism. I call it anti black racism and white supremacist thinking and ideology. I'll let that go. All right. So C Doggo says, I also see your point. Racism changed its meaning. You're right. People shout it for many reasons, but the common term today we use on it on everything on ethnic hate. Exactly. We just had to get to the point about ethnic hate or ethnic discrimination or nationalistic discrimination. Not everything is racism. Racism is about discriminating against people's physical looks. It's very simple. It's very simple. I don't get what's hard about it. I don't get what's hard about it, but whatever. All right, so let's get back to this thing about the draft, and then we're going to finish this live. So, any comments, questions, get it out here. But we're not finished yet. We're going to finish this article. But there's no plans to bring back mandatory conscription in the U.S. Military officials confirmed this week. Nicole Schwegman, a spokesperson for the U.S. Department of Defense, dismissed the claims as false, noting in a phone interview that only Congress and the president have the ability to call for a draft, and the military has not recommended elected officials even consider it. She also pointed to the disclaimer at the bottom of the parameters essay that makes it clear that Defense Department doesn't exercise any editorial control over the publication. The disclaimer also states that articles represent the opinions of their authors and not necessarily those of the Department of Defense, the Department of the Army, the U.S. Army War College, or any other agency of the U.S. government. Robert Kenny, a deputy associate director at the Selective Service System, which maintains information about U.S. residents who potentially qualify for the draft, confirmed the Virginia based agency hasn't had any discussion regarding reinstituting conscription and isn't aware of any legislative proposals in Congress to reinstate the draft. He said one of the agency's top priorities remains ensuring all men ages 18 to 25 years old are aware of the federal requirement to register for the Selective Service in the event the president and Congress enact a draft. We, we are a readiness organization and continually work with federal and state partners in active standby status to ensure the Selective Service system is prepared to mobilize during a national emergency if called on by the president and Congress to do so, Kenny wrote in an email Monday. John Nagel, a professor at the U.S. Army War College, who co authored the Parameters essay, said the piece doesn't even recommend the resumption of the draft. It states the U.S. Army faces a recruiting shortfall and a shrinking reserve corps, meaning it likely could not sustain the rate of casualties seen in the conflict in Ukraine at its current troop levels. Let's keep it real. Like, America will never be in a conflict like what Ukraine is having. Mexico is not going to invade the U.S., Canada is not. The Jamaicans aren't going to come on boats and try to take Florida. That ain't going to happen. So we need to chill. And honestly, people talking about they might bring back the draft, which is false. But let's keep it real. America could disband its army right now and we be straight. Because keep it real, does our army actually fight for our freedom? Does our army actually protect us? Absolutely not. The Pacific Ocean protects us. The Atlantic protects us. Ain't nobody trying to really mess with us. They might be trying to mess with America now just because we've been fucking over so many other people across the world. Let's keep it real. The Afghanis got a grudge and the Iraqis got a grudge for a good reason. I don't blame them. Give them a few generations though, and their daughters and sons gonna be twerking on Instagram too, talking about they trans too, pretty soon. I mean, but until then, until we reach that next generation, like what we did in Vietnam and Korea, ain't nobody tripping about us. Ain't nobody really tripping about the US. So we could get rid of our army. We could save a ton of money. And I think we'd be great. We'd be straight, honestly. I'd be interested to hear what y'all think. Should the US disband its army? We could just have the Coast Guard, the Air Force. We don't need Marines. We don't need aircraft cruisers. We need to stay out of other people's business and protect Americans, protect our borders. If y'all believe in borders, I don't, but yay, America should protect its borders, not worry about what's happening in Israel and in Gaza and the Ukraine and Russia. And let's keep it real. We could have paradise on earth in the US. We got a bunch of land. We have a bunch of people from everywhere in the world. We got all the technology, all the money. Nobody's going to really invade us if we don't fuck with them. We could be straight. That's what I'm thinking. I don't know. Maybe I'm daydreaming. Maybe I'm pipe dreaming. But our army and our military structure has just done more harm than good across the world. Anyway, So I'm going to just finish up this article real quick. The implication is that the 1970s concept of an all volunteer force has outlived its shelf life and does not align with the current operating environment. Nagel and the other authors write in the essay, large scale combat operations troop requirements may well require a reconceptualization of the 1970s and 1980s volunteer force and a move toward partial conscription. Zach Yost, who authored the Mises Institute piece, stressed his item does not say that the military is reinstituting the draft, rather that the U.S. military, in the context of this piece in the War College Journal, is laying the groundwork to do so. There is obviously a difference between these two claims, he wrote in an email. And that's the end of the article here. So, yeah, that was interesting. Thank you, Greg Mack, for giving those cool recommendations for the stories that we read today. I appreciate everybody who came in here. We have a new comment. Greg Mack says, Simon, have a good day. Hope I catch the notification tomorrow. No problem, Greg Mack. Shout out to everybody who came in. Shout out to C Doggo. Shout out to the actual Craig Mack. Uh, who else? Hold up, wait, my comments. Shout out to Avery Adams, EU, Craig Mack, C Doggo, everybody who showed up, chopped it up with me today. I appreciate y'all. Donations to this channel are always accepted. You can always send super chats. You can always donate to my PayPal. I don't ask and beg for money and that sort of stuff, but yeah, you know how we rock in here. This is interesting. I have Greg Mack and Craig Mack here at the same time. I'm going to ask both of y'all, are y'all the same person? Is Greg Mack and Craig Mack the same person? I've always wanted to ask this. Y'all the same person, man. Craig Mack and Greg Mack are the same person. If it is, that's okay, because both of y'all or one of y'all are helping the algorithm. Thank you. But yeah, Craig Mack says, "Stay up, Simon. Thanks for the shout out and the topics. Catch the beginning of the live stream when you are done. Thanks again." Yeah, no problem. But it's true. So Craig Mack and Greg Mack are the same person. Acty, we figured this out. Acty, you want to say hi to the people?
Hi.
Acty says hi. So we finished up this live stream. I'm about to go chill out before my next class. So yeah. Y'all be easy. Catch you on the next live stream tomorrow, and peace.